Thank you very much. Welcome, Chief Justice Roberts, to Jamestown, New York. Welcome to the Robert H. Jackson Center. Welcome to what Justice Jackson regarded as his hometown, the source of what he proudly called his Jamestown jurisprudence. And welcome back to your native Western New York State. Many individual life paths converge here today. I will mention 6. Robert Jackson, of course, William H. Rehnquist, Phil Neal, John Roberts, of course, Henry J. Friendly, and E. Barrett Prettyman, Jr. They are great lives, lived in specific locations, intersecting and shaping each other's, sharing the dedication to reasoning, history, principles, and the betterment of lives and society that are the law. Robert Jackson came to Jamestown High School in fall 1909. He then stayed, beginning to work in fall 1910 as an apprentice to 2 Jamestown lawyers. Jackson's first big case started 100 years ago this month with violent events in this community. During May 1913, Jamestown streetcar workers went on strike. To deprive the railway companies of more than labor, some workers resorted to property crimes. They short-circuited high-tension wires, burned out a powerhouse converter, broke signal handles, tried to saw down power poles, and placed wooden wedges in railroad track switches. Many were arrested. Some then retained a leading lawyer to defend them. But soon he was appointed to a state government office and had to leave the cases. His apprentice, Robert Jackson, was 21 years old. The courts had not yet admitted Jackson to practice law. In these sabotage cases, the defendants and Jackson asked the judge to permit him to take over. The district attorney consented very readily, so the judge agreed. During the trial, Jackson raised a legal objection. Contrary to state law, the DA's case was based only on uncorroborated accomplice testimony. The judge agreed and ordered the jury to acquit. Victory for Jackson in a knockout. Success gets noticed. Soon the street railway company and its president were Robert Jackson clients. A few years later, Jackson caught the eye of a young judge from Buffalo. He recommended Jackson to his former law firm. It recruited Jackson to the big city, the nation's 10th largest. During Jackson's 2 years practicing law in Buffalo, the United States entered World War I and instituted a military draft. Jackson, as the sole financial supporter of his wife, his widowed mother, and his minor sister, was eligible for draft exemption. Mary Willard, Jackson's beloved Jamestown High School English teacher and effectively his second mother, implored him not to fight. She feared for his life and told him that he was destined for greatness. He might become president, she said, or, she predicted, Chief Justice. That didn't happen, but Jackson did travel other high-altitude paths. He was recruited back from Buffalo to Jamestown and became the city attorney. He then became its leading private lawyer with a truly general practice. As a still young lawyer, Jackson rose to the top ranks of the legal profession nationally. He also rose in public life, especially through his friendship with Franklin D. Roosevelt, as he became governor of New York and then president. On 5 occasions, President FDR nominated Jackson to high national office, and he was confirmed by the United States Senate. Jackson served in the Treasury Department and then in the Department of Justice. As Solicitor General of the United States, he argued over 40 cases before the U.S. Supreme Court and won almost all of them. As Attorney General of the United States, Jackson managed for 18 complex months the legal issues relating to U.S. preparation for possible involvement in World War II. In 1941, Robert Jackson became Justice Jackson. Until his death in 1954, he served on the Supreme Court as the eloquent, practical, independent justice of permanent greatness and influence. Plus, by appointment of President Truman, Justice Jackson served for what turned out to be a full year away from the Supreme Court as the chief architect of the world's first international criminal court, and then as the U.S. chief prosecutor of Nazi war criminals at what became the Nuremberg trial. William H. Rehnquist, life number 2, served in World War II, then completed college, earned 2 master's degrees, and enrolled at Stanford Law School. There, he impressed a young professor, Phil Neal, life number 3, who a few years earlier had been Justice Jackson's law clerk. Professor Neal arranged for Jackson to interview Rehnquist, and soon he hired him. Within 2 years of Rehnquist's clerkship, Justice Jackson was gone. It was a life of only 62 years, but in his full living, it was a giant life. And it is a life of major legacies and growing significance. Life number 4, John G. Roberts, Jr., began that very winter in Buffalo. Raised there and then in Indiana, Roberts became a top student at Harvard College and then Harvard Law School. He became a New Yorker again, briefly, when he served as a law clerk to Judge Henry Friendly of the U.S. Court of Appeals in New York City, life number 5. Judge Friendly was one of history's greats, and by the way, a Jackson-like lawyer's lawyer, then lawyer's judge, and a great Jackson admirer. In 1980, John Roberts became a law clerk at the Supreme Court to then Associate Justice Rehnquist. Roberts served subsequently in the Justice Department, the White House, and in the Solicitor General's office. He became one of his generation's very finest Supreme Court advocates. In private practice at Hogan and Hartson in Washington, he worked closely with another great attorney, E. Barrett Prettyman, Jr., life number 6. Decades earlier, Barrett Prettyman served as Justice Jackson's final law clerk. And in the past decade, Mr. Prettyman has been a devoted, essential member of the Jackson Center Board. Justice Rehnquist, of course, did become Chief Justice of the United States. And 10 years ago yesterday, he spoke here with his direct knowledge and memories of Justice Jackson and with palpable emotion, formally dedicating the Robert H. Jackson Center. During that same month, May 2003, John Roberts was confirmed by the Senate to become a judge of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. 2 years later, he was appointed Chief Justice of the United States. Now, I have no basis to claim that Indiana imparted anything to John Roberts that was specifically Jacksonian. Most every other step on the Chief Justice's greatly accomplished life path, however, Western New York, study of history, study of law, Judge Friendly, Washington, the Supreme Court, Justice Rehnquist, the executive branch, the Office of the Solicitor General, Supreme Court advocacy, private practice, Barrett Prettyman, judicial service, and Supreme Court service is strikingly Jackson-like and Jackson-connected. It thus is, for the Robert H. Jackson Center and this region, and for the Jackson Center's work here and globally, particularly apt and very special to host today's guest, the Chief Justice of the United States, John G. Roberts, Jr.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Mr. Chief
Very
Justice.
much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. My only response to the professor's introduction is that it is great to be back home.